Florida State wrapped up their spring practice this week, and we have details on who made moves up, down, and off the depth chart. We're going to break down what we're hearing as it comes to Florida State's depth chart. Let's get into it, Richie. Let's start right away. Before we start going position by position, we did this a few weeks ago, kind of a mid-spring depth chart update. I think we have a little bit better idea of where certain guys have landed. A lot of this will be similar to that last one, so if you watched it, take a notice and take a look at where we think guys may have improved, maybe slid down a little bit, and who may not be on the depth chart anymore, as well as the portal is heated up. But Richie, overall, get out of spring relatively healthy. I know there's some guys that we're maybe thinking about, maybe we're concerned about, but got out of spring pretty healthy for the most part.
Yeah, and that's really priority number one for spring practice, right? Same with fall camp. Just avoid injuries. You don't want an ACL that could leak into next season. You want everyone healthy and ready to go for that LSU game on September 3rd in Camping World Stadium. And Florida State managed to do that. You know, we saw a lot of key players in green jerseys during the spring game, which I fully support. And that's the biggest deal for me with spring. You know, it's nice to see who's coming along, who's not. But getting out of spring with no major injuries to key contributors, that is huge.
Yeah, it's really the biggest part of what we're looking for. Richie, just before we get to the depth chart, I do want to tell you, there are some guys that are not on here, some guys that you didn't see in spring that we're concerned, not concerned. There's different statuses for everybody. We have gone in depth on that on our Discord. You can visit that at the link above right now, right above Richie's head, or down in the description. There are some paid channels, but the Discord itself is free. If you're looking for status updates on guys that maybe missed part of spring, you didn't see in the spring game, we've got it all there for you. But let's jump into the depth chart, Richie. Okay, you get a little bit of credit here. You were right on this. Obviously, Jordan Travis, QB1, no real questions on that, no real doubts on that. But I thought that AJ was going to have a chance to take over that backup spot. At this point, I do not believe that that's the case. I think that Tate solidified himself as the backup. I think he opened the door for AJ, but he maybe slammed it back shut, and AJ probably just didn't do enough to take it over. But you were right here. So hats off to you. I think Tate Rodemaker is your backup quarterback going into the year, which I think will be really, really important. I think those guys will get lots of burn as the season goes along, because I think Florida State's going to blow a lot of people out. So hats off to you for getting this right. We'll see what it looks like after fall, but right now, Tate Rodemaker is certainly your QB2.
Yeah, and I never wanted to count that guy out. You know, obviously I mentioned the Louisville game when we talked about this last time, but he's just a guy, like we talk about the portal, and we'll talk about it a little bit, I'm sure. He's not a guy I ever see hitting the portal. He's just going to be here and grind it out and do everything he can. I don't know if he thinks he'll ever be a starting quarterback at Florida State, but he loves it here, and he is not afraid to put in the work, and you got to love that. You would have liked to see Duffy take a next step and maybe make it more of a competition heading into fall camp. But I do think the backup will be a competition to some extent, but it's definitely Tate's to lose at this point. And good for him, because at some point in the season, it's likely you're going to need a backup to play some meaningful snaps, and that goes for any team in the country. You know, Jordan Travis played in all 12 games last year, all 13 if you count the bowl game. But, you know, you want to have a backup that can win a game. Will he would come in and win Clemson or LSU? I don't know, probably not. But maybe one of those other games that would be closer, you need a competent backup, and I think they have that in Tate Rodemaker right now.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so this one we'll go through quickly. Nothing really changed here based on our thoughts earlier in the spring. I still have Trey Benson, Toafili, Hill, and then Campbell or Holmes. Heard an interesting factoid about Holmes. We'll drop that in the Discord by the time this video comes out. So again, if you want to go check that out, it's the Discord chat with DFNS. That's really blown up over the last little bit. Went from about 300 to about 1,000 members over the last couple of days. I have heard that Hill might have closed that gap with RB2. Thought Campbell looked really good in the spring game, but nothing really crazy going on with that room. We'll go right to wide receivers, and here's where we probably do have a little bit of mix-up. The bottom of this looks pretty similar, and I think it is a massive race for that third spot. But I want to highlight Kentron Portier, who absolutely stepped up. And to me, he is wide receiver 2. I think he backs up Johnny Wilson, who obviously was out. Again, we spoke about that in the Discord, why he missed some time. But I think Kentron is your guy at wide receiver 2 this year. And then I think the third spot is wide open. I think Williamson, Douglas, Spann, Winston Wright, Vandevarius Jacobs, they could all end up competing for that third wide receiver reps. I think Hakeem did some nice things. Winston Wright, it has been impressive at times, but shout out Kentron, who was just absolutely the star of the show when it came to the spring game.
Yeah, and he flashed a lot last year, but you look at his numbers and they were surprisingly low. But you wondered with Micah Pittman, his status being somewhat uncertain heading into fall camp, and when will he be available for the season if he is? I think we're hearing some somewhat positive news regarding that, but that's probably another news for another video. But yeah, man, Kentron did exactly what we were hoping he would do, because heading into the spring game, my thought was we kind of got to go to the portal to see if we can get a wide receiver 2. I think Kentron kind of solidified that, and just looking at the names here, Winston Wright, Deuce Spann, Ja'Kai Douglas, Williamson, Jacobs, Hakeem, you have options to be that number 3, and you feel a lot better about the wide receiver room with Kentron kind of ending his spring football camp on a really high note, and it has to excite you, excites me, and I'm pretty sure it excites Jordan Travis as well heading into the summer.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So this one, we're not changing too much up here either. Bell still at your 1, Morlock, Douglas, Courtney. That's still how I kind of see it shaking out. I mean, we'll see if Biscuit can kind of move up a little bit. We'll see what happens with Brian Courtney, where that roster spot ends up, what ends up happening there. I think Jaheim Bell, we still put the asterisk there just because he could line up anywhere, but I think that's still how it kind of all shakes out. So no major changes on that one. There are some changes, and I do have some different thoughts on the offensive line. Just before we talk about the offensive line, I do want to give some love to our friends over at Satividal. All right, we've told you guys in the past about Gramco. We've had some of you reach out and say you're not really into the Delta 8. Well, I want to tell you about their sister company, Satividal. Satividal is a CBD branch. They're a sister company to Gramco. So if you like Gramco's products, or if you've wanted to try them but just can't due to maybe some other things you've got going on in your life, go check out Satividal. They have a CBD formula that I personally use. I know that my friends have used their Satividal for Pets that you see on the screen there. We've had them out at our tailgate. They're the same people that own Gramco. They're Knoll-founded, vet-owned, and they have a great deal for you if you have any aches and pains. They have a newly formulated CBD muscle gel that you're going to start seeing more and more around the Florida State community. It is for the athlete in all of you. For all those aches and pains you have, I have used their roll-on gels and their soft capsules. They are leaders when it comes to the CBD industry. Go check them out today. Satividal, you can go to thegramco.com to find it. Satividal.com, go check them out. The same code that you use at Gramco, TJ25, will get you taken care of. They also have some CBD gummies if you want to try those out. Again, in partnership with Gramco. You know you guys like those Gramco gummies, but if you need something that's just for pain, not necessarily to enhance your experiences, go check out Satividal.com, thegramco.com. Check out these products. We will link it down in the description and above. TJ25 saves you 25%. Appreciate their support, and let me know how you guys like these new CBD products. All right, offensive line. We have changed some things up here, and we've kept some things the same. Massive error on my part. I used the wrong slide last time we did this. I didn't include Bless Harris. That's on me. I am not changing my mind on that. I thought he was their starting right tackle when we did this 2 weeks ago. I just totally screwed up and left him off of the list. So that's on me. Here's my big takeaway on the offensive line. I think that your tackles are most likely going to be Rob Scott at left and Bless Harris at right. And then I think your middle 3 are going to be some combination of Byers, Smith, Roddick, and Emmanuel. I think you've got 4 guys that are competing for 3 spots. Let's get this right and say it right. You've got 4 guys there in the interior that are competing for 3 spots. If I had to go today, I think I would go with Byers, Smith, and Emmanuel, but I think it is really close. I think you've got a chance of seeing Roddick take that left spot or that center spot, and Emmanuel win on the right side. I think you could see Smith win out the center job, Roddick take the left, Byers move to the right. I think you could plug and play there a little bit. I think that Roddick and Byers being able to move around to different positions is a big thing. But for right now, I've got I've got Scott and Harris locked in at the tackles, and then we'll see what happens on the interior. Don't count out guys like Washington. Don't count out Smith. Don't think that I'm moving on past guys like Armella and Keandre Jones. This is just how I see it right now. Probably the best problem that we've ever had at Florida State is how deep this offensive line unit is.
It's probably the deepest offensive line unit I can remember. That includes 2013, right? That team won the national title. That starting five was stout, but they didn't have a lot behind them. They had the good fortunes of staying healthy, though. But when it comes to depth, you literally have 10, 11 guys who could all start in a Power 5 conference like the ACC. So you have to love what you see here. And I got to say, Bless Harris is kind of my surprise of camp. I thought he could definitely compete for a starting job. Man, he looked like a completely different player in the Garnet and Gold Showcase. Really impressed with him and what he did. But yeah, what a great problem to have when you could potentially, the portal is open right now. You could have someone to leave Florida State on the offensive line that could potentially go start somewhere else in the ACC. What Alex Atkins has done to flip this offensive line room has been nothing short of miraculous.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and we'll see how it progresses as time goes. If I had to, absolutely arms up, have to pick a starting offensive line, it would be Scott, Byers, Smith, Roddick, Harris. Sorry, Dimitri, but it's hard. It's hard to know. So, all right, we're not changing anything up here, so we'll fly through defensive ends. Verse and Payton are your starters. I think Gilbert Edmond, Byron Turner, and Lamont Green Jr. Boots are who backs him up. I have heard a little bit about Briggs going inside, outside. He's pretty athletic, so we'll see. Briggs could move around too if you're not able to pick anything up there in the portal. I'm going to skip defensive tackle because I think it's the most intriguing, and we will fly through the other ones. Kalen, Tatum, DJ, your starters. Omar Graham, I think Ward and Nicholson backing them up. You've had a couple of portal entries there with Brendan Gant, Steven Dix. This room is thin. I think you should look for another linebacker in the portal. I mentioned a Cincinnati kid on the timeline and in the Discord that I think you could look at. This is a thin room. I think it's very, very top-heavy. I really like Kalen, Tatum, and DJ. I think Omar Graham will do a good job of backing them up. But then you're relying on a couple of true freshmen. I think Ward had some highlights, through spring, but that is asking a lot. Not really changing much up here either. I think your starters look like Cypress or Green, maybe Green or Jones. Some combination of those three are going to be your top two. With how much Florida State gets in the nickel and dime, they're probably going to all three see a lot of the field this year. Your nickel probably does look like Vance and Knowles. I think both of them had really good moments last year. Both of them had moments where you wish they'd have some growth, but I do think they're pretty locked in there. And I think Azariah Thomas and Quindarius Jones are probably your next in line after that top three. Quindarius Jones, even for a freshman, just looks ridiculous out there on the boundary. I think they're both super athletic, and I do think they'll both get a lot of burn this year. And then safety. Safeties we've changed up just a little bit, maybe a little hint, wink, wink here when you look at this one, but I do think Denton Brown are still your starters. Duke Cooper backing them up. And then I've got Conrad Hussey taking the next spot there. I wouldn't be shocked if Florida State was active a little bit here at the safety position in the portal. I've heard that Keltner may have jumped in and solidly put himself in that mix with Fitzgerald. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be one or the other, and I don't have a ton of confidence there. I know that I believe Ingram of the Nolecast said that he thought that Keltner may have taken the job. So we'll see. Obviously, he's a pretty plugged-in guy. I don't really have anything changing up on my kick return, punt return. I know Richie had some different stuff there, but I think that'll kind of be by committee. I could see Winston Wright back there doing both those jobs. I could see Vandavarius Jacobs back there at punt return. I think Florida State does have a few options there. So flew through those because not much changed outside of the kicking position and your fourth string safety or your fourth in the depth chart safety. Here's the big one, defensive tackles. I believe that if we kicked off against LSU today, and this has nothing to do with Fisk's injury, but I believe that Farmer is your second defensive tackle. I think he had a fantastic spring. I know there were rumors about certain teams down south wearing orange and green trying to poach him. Again, this spring. But I do think he's very locked in with the Noles. He's got some exciting NIL stuff that we will help announce here coming soon. But both he and Fabo, to me, are the starters. That has nothing to do with Fisk's injury. I just think that that's how good Farmer was here in the spring. I like Fisk and Jackson backing those guys up. I thought Ayo Tafasi was really, really, really good. I think Briggs will get some burn as well. I think Ayo could certainly work himself into heavier into the rotation. I think that's a very deep room. I think it'll get a lot of guys cycled in, cycled out. But Farmer is my second, my defensive tackle there with Fabo, getting the majority of the reps, starting games. I think those two guys are going to absolute wreck stuff there in the middle. And so that's what defensive tackle looks like to me. Richie, what are your thoughts here?
I guess my biggest thought is what an embarrassment of riches, right? I don't know if you have a bunch of, first, second, third round draft picks on this list, but as far as college football goes, you have some growing men that will make an elite defensive tackle group. And the best part is you don't want to play a guy like Fabian or Farmer or Fisk or Jackson or anybody, 60, 65 snaps. You're going to let them play, 40, 45 snaps each on the high end. They're going to stay fresh. It's going to be like hockey line changes, TJ. I'm really excited for this group. If they stay healthy, this might be the deepest defensive tackle group in the entire conference. And, right up there with the Bamas and Georgias of the world if you start talking nationally.
I was talking with somebody over at LSU today, and they told me, we were talking about the game that'll happen in Orlando, and I just kind of said like, hey, I do. I think it's a good game, and I think Florida State has a slight edge at quarterback. No offense to Jaden Daniels, because I was talking to I actually think they have a massive advantage at quarterback, but I was talking to an LSU person, so I was trying to be respectful. I said I think FSU has a massive advantage at quarterback, and I think their defensive line is slightly better. And they took no issue with quarterback, but they said, slightly, you guys' defensive line is one of the best in the country, and we are scared to death of it. So anyway, yeah, LSU knows what's coming. I do. I think that Clemson still has a very good defensive line. I think ours is slightly better. And again, top five-ish in the country is where the potential is this year on defensive line. It could be truly, truly special. And that's where I think Florida State got gashed the most last year, just right up the middle against good offenses. You think about Florida, Oklahoma, you think about Wake Forest, Clemson. They kind of did whatever they wanted. So I think that, having this kind of depth, having this good of a defensive line is going to be pretty special. I wouldn't hate if we went to the portal for another defensive end. Again, portal's weird in spring. You only really get the fall to get ready for football. But if there is kind of an impact guy there, obviously Florida State does a pretty good job of developing defensive ends and always has, but certainly these last couple of years. So, well, we appreciate you guys for hanging out. Appreciate you guys for watching along with us. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you think about the roster. Hopefully I didn't have any glaring mistakes this time like I did last time. Again, tell Bless Harris I'm very sorry. I actually saw him this weekend. Robert Scott came by the tailgate and got to play to Guthrie. So shout out to him and Bless Harris who were walking by on their way into the stadium. Rob was in a boot, obviously didn't play, but so he loaded up on the Guthries and Bless passed on it. So our strength and conditioning people will be thrilled to know that. But shout out to those guys. Super cool. It was an exciting spring, relatively healthy getting out of there. If you need any inside news or notes, again, go hit the Discord. It is free. There are some paid channels. It's like $3 a month, though. So don't be a poor person and sign up. It's mostly just to give you a barrier of entry to keep the trolls out. So come hang out with us over in Discord. Again, appreciate the tip at all. Richie, thank you for hanging out, man. This was fun, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Go Noles.